Bonjour. In this lesson, we're going to talk about that little two-letter word de. Again, it's really important in French. And in this lesson, we're going to focus on some common verbs that are followed by de when they're followed by an infinitive. Okay? This is not a complete list. I tried to choose some verbs that you can really actually use, okay, as you're starting to speak French more and more. So what I'm planning to do in this lesson is go through the list with you, read through the examples that I've written for you, and explain anything that might be a little complicated. So be sure on your lesson guide to take some notes in case you have questions. You also have a Quizlet study set that you can use to practice and master these verbs that are followed by de. And remember, this is when they're followed by an infinitive, okay? So first we have accepter de. And this means really, it means to accept doing something or to agree to doing something. So the example, nous acceptons d'assister à votre mariage. Nous acceptons d'assister à votre mariage. So you see here, we agree to attend your wedding. This one's tricky because, of course, you have accepter de followed by an infinitive, but you see assister looks like it should mean to assist, but you notice it means to attend, and it's followed by a. Okay, so here we have a de and an a in this sentence. Arrêter de means to stop doing something. So if I say j'arrête de parler, it just means, well, I wrote it literally first. I stopped speaking, but I know I wouldn't say that. I would say I'm not speaking anymore. I'm not saying anything else. J'arrête de parler. Okay, you've seen the next one, avoir besoin de, back when we studied avoir expressions. This is one that's followed by an infinitive. Tu as besoin d'étudier ces verbes. Tu as besoin d'étudier ces verbes. Right? So you need to study these verbs. Avoir envie de, that's another avoir expression. Avoir envie de. Qui a envie d'aller voir le nouveau James Bond? Qui a envie d'aller voir le nouveau James Bond? Notice here we actually have two infinitives right next to each other. We have aller and voir, and it means to go see, or you might say to go and see, or to go to see. Okay, but qui a envie d'aller means who wants to go and see the new movie. You also have the verb vouloir, which means to want, and of course you can use vouloir instead of avoir envie de if you want to. But just remember that vouloir, when it's followed by another infinitive, you don't have to use a de after it, okay? You get to use the other infinitive right after it. Like in the next example, avoir l'air de. Avoir l'air de means to seem to want to do something, all right? Tu as l'air de vouloir dire quelque chose. So you can see what I mean. Tu as l'air de, followed by vouloir, and then after vouloir we have another infinitive, dire, but there's no preposition in between vouloir and dire. Tu as l'air de vouloir dire quelque chose. You seem to want to say something. Lots of avoir expressions require this de before an infinitive. As you'll see, avoir l'intention de. That means to intend, right? On n'a pas l'intention de voyager cet hiver. On n'a pas l'intention de voyager cet hiver. We do not intend to travel this winter. We don't plan on traveling this winter. It's not something that we intend to do. Avoir peur de, to be afraid. Mon frère a peur de prendre l'avion. Mon frère a peur de prendre l'avion. It means my brother is afraid to fly. And I want to take this opportunity to look closely at that English sentence. You see the infinitive that I've used, to fly? My brother's afraid to fly. There is a verb in French to fly, which is voler. But when it comes right down to it, people can't fly, right? So in French, we wouldn't say mon frère a peur de voler. If you say mon mon frère a peur de voler, it means that he's afraid of, flapping his arms and flying that way. If you mean, what you really mean is he's afraid of taking the plane. So that's what this means literally, de prendre l'avion. All right, avoir raison de, to be right. Vous avez raison d'avoir peur. You're right to be afraid. You see that? Vous avez raison d'avoir peur. In this sentence, we have two avoir expressions right next to each other. Avoir tort de, that means to be wrong. Vous avez tort de ne pas me faire confiance. Vous avez tort de ne pas me faire confiance. So, here, you notice the de is right after vous avez tort, and then we have more words before the infinitive comes into play. So let's talk about those extra words. Vous avez tort de ne pas me faire confiance. If we want to make an infinitive negative, as we do, that's the verb, faire, that's the one that we want to make negative because look, you are wrong not to trust. All right? Faire confiance means to trust. If we want to make an infinitive negative, we put ne pas in front of the infinitive. Now, you are wrong not to trust me. And remember what we talked about when we want to use a pronoun like me, we're going to put it in front of the verb, whether it's a conjugated verb or an infinitive, we're going to put it right in front of the verb that it's directly connected to in context. So that's why you have those extra words in between de and faire. D'accord? All right. Choisir de, to choose. Vous choisissez de rester chez vous. Vous choisissez de rester chez vous. You choose to stay home. So remember that chez vous means at your place, at your home. Rester means to stay. It does not mean to rest. It means either to stay or to remain. D'accord? Décider de, to decide. Il décide de faire une présentation. Il décide de faire une présentation. So they decide to make a presentation. Faire can mean lots of things, okay? In this case, it means to make. Remember, it's how do we know it's une présentation and not un présentation? This is just a little trick. If a French noun ends in T-I-O-N, it's going to be feminine. So try to remember that. Write it down in your notes. Demander de. Je demande de sortir. I'm asking to go out. Je demande de sortir. Now that can mean to go out to the movies. It can mean also to go out of a room. D'accord? Sortir, to go out. Essayer de. Nous essayons de te comprendre. Nous essayons de te comprendre. So here again we have de and then comprendre, but you have another little word that comes in between because te means you. And remember, it has to come in front of comprendre because who I'm trying to understand is you. So we are trying to understand you. This next one, I really wanted to put it in. I know it's a lot of words. Être obligé de. Être obligé de. It's used a lot in French. So listen to this. Nous sommes obligés de partir à 18h30. Nous sommes obligés de partir à 18h30. And look at what it means in English. We're obligated to leave at 6:30 p.m. Remember, that's 18h30, and we don't say 18h30. It has to be 18h30 when we're using that 24-hour clock. But the way I would probably say it in English is we have to leave at 6:30, which may lead you to ask me, well, Jennifer, can I use the verb devoir? Because that means must. It means to have to. Sure you can. This is just another way to say it. But remember, devoir, like vouloir, does not require a de or an a after it. You can follow it up directly with an infinitive. D'accord? So you could have said, nous devons partir à 18h30. You see what I mean? All right. There's always more than one way to say something, you know? Faire exprès de, another really good one. It looks like that word exprès looks like it means that it's going to be something express, it's going to be something fast or quick, but that's not what it means. It means to do something on purpose. All right? So you might have to memorize that one because how handy is this? Je ne fais pas exprès de ne pas comprendre. Je ne fais pas exprès de ne pas comprendre. I don't mean not to understand. I just don't get what you're saying. I'm not doing it on purpose. You see what I mean? And look, we have again those two words in between de and comprendre, ne pas. And the reason why is because I'm making the verb, the infinitive comprendre, negative. It's not a conjugated verb, so I'm not going to put ne pas around it. I'm going to put it right before. All right, I'm trying to get a little repetition on that from time to time in our lessons so that you can remember how to do it. Finir de. Elles finissent d'écrire l'exercice. Elles finissent d'écrire l'exercice. That's pretty straightforward. They finished writing the exercise. You want to know why I'm showing you all of these verbs that are followed by de, because that's the focus of this week's lesson, and we're going to continue talking about it in a couple of future lessons. But eventually we're going to get to a list of verbs when they're followed by infinitives, and guess what? They're not followed by de, they're followed by a instead. And I really want you to get a grasp of this, that some take de, some take a, and some take nothing at all. All right? So just trying to break it down for you. Offrir de. J'offre d'apporter leur bagage. J'offre d'apporter leur bagage means I'm offering to bring their luggage. Okay? Their luggage, that's singular in English, right? But notice up here in French, leur bagage, that's when there's more than one, we're going to go ahead and make it plural. Oublier de. Tu oublies toujours de faire tes devoirs. That's not the case for you. But tu oublies toujours de faire tes devoirs. You always forget to do your homework. D'accord? Promettre de, to promise to do something. Nous promettons de ranger notre chambre. Nous promettons de ranger notre chambre. We promise to clean up our room. D'accord? Ranger, to clean up or to tidy up, to put things away. This is not a deep clean, right? This is not the same as nettoyer. Ranger is just to pick things up and make it look neat. All right, here we just have two more, and then you're going to be able to practice with your practice cards, of course, and Quizlet. Rêver de. Rêver means to dream. Ces petits-enfants rêvent d'aller à Disneyland. Ces petits-enfants rêvent d'aller à Disneyland. Yeah, so if I said, ces petits-enfants rêvent d'aller à Disneyland, it's not going to sound very French. So we're going to say it the French way, Disneyland. Disneyland. So remember, ces petits-enfants, we have no context here. We don't know if it's his or her grandchildren because it's SES. His or her grandchildren dream of going to Disneyland. And finally, risquer de. Risquer de is to risk. Vous risquez de perdre toutes tes affaires. What have I done there? Can anyone see? Can anyone see and write it down and tell me in our next lesson where I made a little mistake here? Well, write it down real fast because I'm about to tell you. Did you notice that I said vous risquez de perdre toutes tes affaires? What should I have said instead of tes affaires? I'll let you tell me. I'll go ahead and tell you. It should have written vos affaires, right? V-O-S, because when you start with vous, you want to stick with vous. Okay? Vos affaires, that's just your belongings. It's your stuff. So you risk losing all of your belongings. Or, be careful, you might lose all of your stuff. I could also translate it that way. Always more than one way to translate these. All right, so when we get together, we will practice. And until then, je te dis au revoir et à bientôt.